Guess what day it is? It's Relationship Tip Thursday. Today we're talking about identifying your differences and making your differences an asset. As we all know, opposites attract, right? You don't really necessarily go out searching for the person that's just like you. You go out searching for the person that complements you. So most of the time, it's somebody of the opposite. You also have to remember that differences are rooted in that we are creations of God, right? And God is infinitely creative. So he didn't design any of us alike. That's why our fingerprints are different, lips, nose, eyes, hair, everything is just like different. So remember that when you are thinking. Though I cannot predict what differences you will discover in your relationship, but what I can predict is that as we're identifying our differences, we have to think back to our role models, which is our parents. Most of us either identify and act similar into the ways that they taught us, or some of us really just do the opposite and really are turned off by the way they handle things. I'm going to go through a couple differences so you can kind of see if you identify with me. Trust me, there's way more. So, you have morning versus night person. Some people are morning, early riser. And some people are like, don't talk to me in the morning. I'm an afternoon type of person. You have your dead seas and your babbling brooks. You have people that won't say anything. And then you have people that be just like, they never shut up. You have your people that are super neat, and then you have people that are slobs, that are just nasty. Terrifying. You have the aggressive versus the passive. You have the organized person, pre-planner, and then you have the spontaneous. Hey, we should do this today. Or you have like, hey, next week on the 4th, we're going to be here, 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 and here. You have the logic, and you have the free spirit. Everything has to make sense, or why does everything have to depend on logic? You have the person that reads all the time, and then you have the TV addict that doesn't read anything. Doesn't really get any new information but what's put on TV. You have the spendy, or you have the person that's, hey, we should watch our money. You have the person that goes to church every Sunday, and just Sundays. And you have the person that goes to every church on Sundays and Wednesdays. They like to get the extra dose of the Lord. No matter what these differences are, they arise. Drop below a comment and tell me which one are you. Now the key is making these differences an asset, right? Making things that usually would fall under, oh, this gets on my nerves, to actually, it's a blessing. I'm glad you're like that. They say differences can be either deadly or they can be delightful. Why don't you delight in your differences? Dr. Gary Chapman talks about unity and uniformity, right? And so he brings up a good point that we're supposed to be in unity, not uniform. I think of it as, why would you have 11 players on the football field and them all be quarterbacks? Or why would you have 5 players on the basketball team and them all be point guards, right? You need a mixture of things so you can become one and function as one, not all being the same and really can't add different components to your self or situation. So a good step to figuring out and turning your liability of differences into assets is take a step back and say, what about this differences disturbs me? Why does it disturb me? What is it about it that disturbs me? Normally, if you really do the research, it's deeply rooted in your past. Check out your past. Once you figure these things out and you can identify them for yourself and you actually do the research and really dig deep, you can better explain it to your spouse and articulate it in a way of them to understand what irritates you about this. I'll give you a quick example. My husband likes expensive things, and I'm more on the like, does it really matter? And it used to bother me. But then I asked a question. I said, well, why do you like just all these expensive things? And he said, it's the quality of things. When you waste more money buying something over and over and over again when it's cheap, when you can buy it once and keep it and it be long lasting. I started to think about my childhood and how my mom was like that. And honestly, my dad is like that too. But then I also saw how we would always lose things, like get all these things and then be taken away. So I had a sense of I didn't want to be poor, or I didn't want to be connected to materialistic things and have people think that. But really, that was something in my past that was deeply rooted. It had nothing to do with my spouse. And once I figured that out, I was able to articulate that, and we were able to work out that difference, and I was able to understand. You also have to remember that only you can define and actually explain why something disturbs you or what bothers you. That is only your responsibility. That's not up to your partner. That is you. You. I have a couple that is my friends, and one would go to bed really late and one would go to bed really early. And I was noticing that they would always be at odds. And so I talked to my friend and I was like, man, what's going on? And she's like, oh my God, I'm not going to bed early. And he was like, this is what time I have to be up early in the morning. And so what ended up happening, I ended up asking him a question. I'm like, well, what is it? He's like, I don't really care that she stays up late. He said, what it is that I don't get to be with her. I don't get to lay with her. I don't get to enjoy that with her. And we don't get to, I don't feel loved. And so I talked to her and I was like, did you know that? She's like, no, I just thought he was annoyed, whatever. What he really felt is that his needs weren't being met. So what ended up happening is that when he would lay down, she would go in the room, get him settled, do her thing. And then she would leave and go handle her business and be herself and have her nighttime. Neither of them changed who they were. They just added something to it. Sex. I think when you get to this point in the relationship, you have to remove the fact that you guys are at odds and insert the fact that you guys are friends. And friends work things out. So making sure that we both understand each other. And if we don't, then you go to God. And you get understanding, and you go to your counsel, and you get understanding. You don't go to people that are just going to agree with you. You go to people that are going to give you a difference of an opinion to make you see the other side and where the other person is coming from. What I love about the story about me and my husband is that we didn't choose that being frugal was bad or being a spender was bad. There's nothing bad about either one of us. It's just that we need to understand each other so we can come to an agreement about how we're going to move forward and work things out. That is a big step because now we're saying neither one is bad. Let's just figure something out. I could give stories for each differences because I can relate. One funny story is that I fixed Brandon's lunch at night and I was always putting in Tupperware. Brandon would never put the Tupperware back in the sink or wash it out. He would always leave it in his bag and turn out stinky. We had to throw it away. I was getting really annoyed because I was just like, you just don't care. And finally, I was just like, it's not that he doesn't care. He doesn't remember. And it's not important to him because it's a piece of plastic and he can buy a new one. So what I started doing was putting his lunch in Ziploc bags so then he could just throw them away at work. Getting plastic forks so he can throw them away at work. That was something that I was able to identify with our differences and not make a big fuss about it afterwards, but trying to figure out a solution to how to fix that problem. Now, it works. What I'm saying is that once you figure out your differences and you identify them, and then you figure out that I want to make this an asset and not a liability, and we communicate it, you figure out ways that actually benefit you with that person's difference. Some of you will be like, well, it just gets on my nerves. You need to take a deep look at yourself first and really think about why that difference bothers you so much. Drop a comment below and tell me what are your differences that irritate you about your spouse and what's something that you could do to fix it. See you soon. If you like what you see, do not like, make a comment, save it, share it, and then like it. That's the last thing I want you to do. Cheese.